Hello, everyone. I wish all of you a happy Earth Day. And I wish that we do justice to Earth that it has been doing for us since several centuries. So everything that we consume or use, be it vegetables, fruits, water, air, or other resources, are all from nature. We can never deny that. Nothing more we can do towards nature than cultivating the art of gratefulness towards it by being more sensible and sustainable. To make this process simpler and more efficient, we need to start early. Right from their birth, children should be inculcated with the attitude of realizing the values of gifts that nature bestows upon us. Hello, everyone. I'm Smriti Shweta Samantre, climate reality leader and an ECDF forum member. Will take you on an insightful tour of thoughts wherein our expert panelists will come forward with their opinions, knowledge, and experiences. Let me share and introduce you to all our esteemed panelists we have with us today. So, to start with, we have with us Simona Sabatini, ma'am. She is the founder of Desire, Decide, Develop, supporting people to get the best out of their potential at individual, professional, and business level. She is also the main coach at Desire, Decide, Develop. She is the co-founder of Watoto Kenya Onless, which is a not-for-profit organization, wherein she also has served as the former president for Italy and former chair lady uh, of Watoto Kenya Onless Trust, Kenya. Our next panelist is Matt Harder. So Matt is an experienced educator working in both mainstream and alternative pedagogies. He has worked in the outdoor learning sector for more than a decade, with the learners from the age uh, with the age group varying between 2 to 18 years old. Quite a difficult task, though. He is a keen advocate of the forest school ethos. Another panelist we have with us is Neeta Ganguly. So Neeta Ganguly, she is an educator, humanist, motivator, attitude changer, author, climate leader mentor, and national coordinator of Waste to Wealth at the Climate Project Foundation. She was conferred with the Indian Achievers Club's Award for 99 Women Achievers of India, acclaimed in 2020, the Most Admired Inspiring Indian Award in 2021, presented by the Indian Ex-Defense Service Employees Chamber of Commerce and Industries. She is also a Fulbright scholar and a TEDx speaker, and she has authored two illustrated children's story books, which goes by the name of Polytrap and Hello Earth, Here We Come. She has also authored 365 Ways to Save the Environment, published by Om Books International in February 2022. In 2008, she was certified as the climate reality leader by the Nobel laureate and former US Vice President, Mr. Al Gore, and his not-for-profit foundation, which is the Climate Reality Project. And ever since, she has not given a back glance. And she has been proactively reaching out to both defense personnel and civil society groups, including the rag pickers. And the next panelist that we have with us is Dr. Ketna Atul Matkar. She is the founder and managing director of Cypher Environmental Solutions LLP, which is an environment consultation and advisory company based out of Thane. She has a PhD degree in microbiology and has more than 40 certifications in the domain of environment. She has published several papers in national and international journals and has made presentations at various forums, conferences, symposiums, and more. She has an extensive cross sectoral experience spanning over 27 years of her work experience and is associated with several organizations and institutions in various capacities. She is also recognized as the Gem of Mentor India by Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, for 2021 and 2022. She is recognized and featured as Women Climate Leader and Climate Hero by Climate Reality Project 2022. She is also recognized as Climate Change Awareness Champion by C Cube NIUA 2022, and she's also a mentor for global organization Women Plus in Climate Tech since 2022. A warm and hearty welcome to all the panelists. So, as we know that today we have gathered here to discuss about how do we create a small but a powerful force to fight climate crisis. That's why we have landed up here to discuss about Children for Greener Planet. A common question to all, why Children for Greener Planet? So let me start with Simona, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm very happy to be here with you. Now, obviously, children are our future. We always say that. But many times as adults, we don't act remembering that children are our future. So we need them to learn since they're very young to love and respect nature, and also to be proud of being part of protecting nature. And the second point is that their mind is young, so we know is like a sponge. If we put the correct seeds, good seeds, these seeds will grow, and we have better adults in the future. We will have people who will be able to take care of the planet, very far from what was happening in my generation. And then we know that nature and a greener planet are the source of well-being. Let's say that we know that if we have a greener planet, if we eat well, we have better health, better well-being, energy. Nature and green is also a very good way to rejuvenate. And I can say, for example, nowadays I read something that in Western countries, some of the Western countries, 1 child on 4 is showing symptoms of mental diseases. And we know that if we go for green planet, if we go to the nature, if we try to promote this concept in the children, this is a way also to reduce these challenges.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like Neeta ma'am to share her views on this. Ma'am, you are on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for having me here. And we were just interacting with Simona and Matt, and I was getting wonderful, views from them. And, one thing we all know that children, they love stories, And one of the most familiar story, which I think we're all familiar with, is the Goldilocks and the Three Bears story. It's a bedtime story from, you start reading to a 3 years old to maybe 6 years old. And the key word which is there in the story is just right. When the baby porridge, when Goldilocks eats the porridge of the baby bear, she says just right, because it was not too hot, not too cold. Similarly, when she sits on the chair to have the porridge, of course, she eventually breaks the chair, but that's the most comfortable one. And she also sleeps on the baby's bed because it was, again, not too hard and not too soft. So these stories, actually, if you look at it, they can be related to our everyday's life. And we all know that the planet Earth is also known as the Goldilocks planet because it's not too hot, not too cold. The distance it is from the sun, it's just right. And because of that, our planet is actually the ideal, because life is possible over here and it provides us with all the basic necessities and in abundance to sustain life. But we have to be, there are few, those who are powerful, who have made a difference. There are quite a lot of them who are like that frog sitting in that cold jar of water. And constantly, people from our generation have been taking, making, using, and dumping in nature, which the children are actually seeing it. And we need to be honest with them. And it is these people who, wait, and they said, no, I think we can plunder even more. Even if the water is getting warmer, they continue to do as if, business as usual. And then when the water really becomes hot, which we are facing right now, and they don't want to quit, that's when a hand should come and pull them out and salvage it, So that is the kind of hand that some of us who are sitting over here need to nurture and develop and give them that power so that the children can salvage people and can tell us that there is hope. The world does not only belong to us, but to them too, as Simona just correctly said, that, most of us don't even realize that it's the children. We bring in the children, but we are not, keeping the earth, the planet, healthy and clean and green, what they deserve to. So when we bring in our children in this world, it is our duty that we give them the life they deserve to live. So yes, that's my take on this.
Very well said, ma'am. Like you have suggested that storytelling is the best method to actually
Absolutely.
reach out to children, and that's how they get it.
And
And
we
like
are
Simona,
yeah.
yes, and Simona ma'am has suggested that, the way you teach them, the pedagogy, the approach, just like the sponge acquires whatever actually, gets onto it. Even that's another aspect and very critical. I would like to learn from Ketna ma'am, like what are her views and how she sees this entire theme echoing in future.
What I understand is children are the custodian of the future. We are consuming whatever resources we have today. Tomorrow, we definitely have got lots of evidence from science that it is not going to be the same scenario. And we will be giving, rather, we will be putting our children in the scenario where there will be a lot of chaos, there will be depletion of all the resources, there will be a lot of pollution, and they don't deserve that. Today, if we consider global population, 25% of the population is children. So definitely this is going to be their future, and we need to make them aware about it right from now. They can change themselves, they can make themselves ready and aware about what future lies for them. And besides that, there are certain studies in which, like specifically it has been conducted in developed countries. There was an experiment in which it was seen that more than 240 students and around 300 parents were involved. And they saw that there was a reverse socializing. So normally what happens as a trend is that we teach our children to have sustainable practices. Students learn it from the teachers as well as parents or all the role models which they see in their life. During this experiment, they saw that middle school children, when they were being taught about certain sustainability related aspects and they were taught about these things, so they could cause reverse change in the parents. So the result saw that around 23 to 28% of the parents could be changed in their mindset, like they were not having sustainable practices, they were not implementing that. But when the children, they were being taught, they went back to their parents and they could reverse their mindset. So they have so much of power. So why should we not teach them? One very generalized example, whenever we give something valuable to our children, maybe if you are giving them a diamond ring or you are giving them some currency in hand, what is the first thing which you are going to do is you will tell them that this is very precious and keep that thing preserved and safe. Okay, so similarly, environment is also something which is very precious. All these resources are very precious, but we do not tell them that this is limited. They do not have this kind of awareness today that they have to take precautions to preserve that. So similarly, if we we tell the children today about how and what needs to be taken care of, it would be more impactful. That's what my opinion is.
True, ma'am. Definitely that mental conditioning is required, and we can get it through several measures, like how to actually, embark upon behavioral and attitudinal change. And yes, of course, like you pointed out, that getting involved in the process actually helps. So this reminds me of one such incidents wherein one of the kids in my apartment, she literally, kind of, kept reminding her parents, like, dad, please switch off the light, because they were just stepping out of the house. and they thought maybe like, they can keep the lights on and they can step out because it was getting dark and all. And she was like, please switch off the lights, you're not using them, why to kind of waste energy. And they were literally startled at her response, and she was like, must be around 7-8 years old. So that behavioral change doesn't come overnight, it has to grow with the passage of time. And yes, there's a lot of hard work behind it, which actually goes into it, a lot of thought processes and all. So now heading to our next panelist, Matt. So I would like to know your views on this and how we can take it forward in the next phase. Also, we'll be discussing it in a more elaborated way. But if you can just throw some of your opinions and throw some light on how you take it forward, how you see it.
So yeah, we in England, we're in fact globally, I think we're in a very fortunate position in that we've had this epidemic of COVID that's been affecting us all over the last couple of years, and certainly from the sites that I work in, it's provided a really clear opportunity, not for just the children but for the parents as well, in the way that our reduction of vehicles and use of machinery has vastly changed the way that our environment has responded to that. As an example, our forest school site in one of the schools that I work in, we didn't have the children in. It was during a lockdown session, so we had everyone working from home. Cars weren't on the roads, and when we came back after 6 months maybe, the biodiversity of that particular site had increased more than I'd ever seen it in 14 years at the school. So there's definitely the chance in this particular generation that we can use those experiences to highlight the impact, positive impact, that small things can have. Just 6 months of not being as maybe using our vehicles as much has such a significant impact on our local community. And I think those types of experiences are really good to highlight, particularly to the children, but also to the parents. And just to echo the sentiments of the other panelists, that we're not just looking at the children for the greener future, we're actually looking at how they need to influence their parents and how we can influence the parents as well, because this generation of parents are the people that have the power to help their children understand the damage that has been caused to the earth and what we can do to reverse that.
Yeah, so I think we lost you in between. Yeah, please carry on. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you're audible now, so you can go on. Yeah. Okay, so sir, like you suggested that in the process we have to keep parents involved, which is really correct, because when it comes to children, they actually don't, I mean, they are in a stage of their life wherein they do have that dependency on the ecosystem that moves around them, including the parent, teacher, and the community, from which like they constantly learn. So how do we go about it? Like, if we talk about like actually creating this small sensible force of children who can actually stand up and fight for creating a sustainable future. So sir, I would like to know like 2-3 things, that 2-3 critical pointers that you would like to share with us, which are like really important, very, very imperative when it comes to how to prepare them for future and how to actually prepare them with a vision that they have to create and co-create a sustainable tomorrow. So if you can share with us.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
So this is echoing something that has already been said, is that to start the children early and getting them out in nature from the very beginnings of their lives, from babies. And part of that is to change parental attitudes as well. There's a lot of worry about the dangers of being outside, not only from plants and animals and insects, but also from the sun and other environmental factors. But to try and change those attitudes and get more information about how the health benefits of having children outside in green spaces is quite significant. And then doing that from such an early age will have a massive impact. And again, that's to develop these parental behaviors and parental attitudes. Another key thing, I think, is to think about it in a long-term process. This is a picture of my daughter from the age of 2 up to just actually last week. And we're always outside, so we really look at the outdoor environment in all seasons. And that long-term process is a really key thing, because we're developing that connection not overnight, as someone already mentioned. It's definitely something that has to grow. Relationships develop over periods of time, and this is what we're trying to replicate in terms of our relationship with the natural world around us and around our children. Also very important is not to just not just to be in that outside space, but actually to connect with it in a physical and slightly more realistic way. Naming objects. So when we do our outdoor sessions, we find insects all the time, or we find plants, we find trees, and we make a real effort to name them, to give them either human names. So in the middle there, we have got Trevor, who was the beetle that we found. And then we've got 2 examples where we've created these characters on trees to make them more sort of humanistic. And in that sort of development of trying to give an animal or a plant or a tree a name, the children are much more aware of it as a living object, and they become a bit more relational with it. Sensory things like touching the trees and touching the animals also give that idea of connection, and provide an opportunity for us to talk about, you know, consent and how we approach those types of things. That beetle didn't ask to be picked up, so we're going to be really gentle with it. That tree didn't expect its leaves to be plucked, so we're not going to do that. We're going to be respectful of those living creatures and plants. And the interaction of creating dens or creating faces on trees, more than just a simple touch. This is a real engagement with the objects. In 2022, there was a report done by Natural England who looked at a study. It was a longitudinal study of over 10 years of data, where people were asked about their opinions of the environment and their connection level to it. And they used various types of surveys and data collection processes. And at the end of this study, they found that it wasn't enough just to be outside. So you can see from the graph there that people that were outside tended to have a better nature connection than people who weren't, and that's fairly obvious. But also the thing that was strange was that it isn't about being outside, it's about who you're outside with. And as you can see from the graph there, it's about the facilitators, those people that that identify these plants, that share their passion for the outdoor environment. And we are the type of people that refers to. Parents that are just taking their children on a walk through the woods every week doesn't necessarily mean that their children are going to get a better connection to the nature around them. It's about stopping, taking note of things, naming things, connecting with things. And in that, having that higher nature connection means that they are much more pro-environmental in their behaviors. So long-term, an expert facilitated. So having those types of things as the key point of this summary. And one of those things is the Forest School ethos, which I'm a very keen advocate for. I'm on the trustees of the Forest School Association, and the Forest School ethos, for those of you that are unaware of it, there are 6 main principles. It's long-term. It works over a period of time so that we build up that relationship, not only with our learners, but with the environment as well. It's very learner-led, it's very play-based, it's holistic, it involves riskiness, so that using tools, using risky plants, nettles, things like that, done in a woodland or natural setting, and then facilitated by these people that have the passion for the environment and have the passion for sharing that with the children, that we find does give a massive boost to that nature connection.
Yes, definitely. Like you pointed out here, that personification of any any element of nature is also a very critical aspect of sustainability education. And yes, of course, you need to have sensory, sensory methods also in place. Like if it's a texture, like if they need to know what is the texture of a pebble versus stone versus rock, small differences that they should be able to identify, also in terms of like the leaves or birch of the tree, and if they actually want to hug a tree, so how does it feel like? So connecting with nature is like really important. That's quite insightful. Now moving on to our next panelist. Neeta ma'am, I would like to learn from you, since sustainability education actually works as a key tool for driving climate change mitigation when we look at it from the long-term perspective. So if you could throw some light on how that can be made possible for toddlers or children in their early childhood years or in primary school, wherein they have limited understanding about nature and very limited like exposure also, apart from like going outdoors and playing outdoors. So how that can actually be amplified, if you could share some examples wherein such initiatives have taken place, or you have seen them, or you have implemented. So if you could just share some insights on this.
Sure. First of all, when you're talking about mitigating climate change, one needs to be aware of those very simple signs which is behind it, which can help you to mitigate. Also, when we're talking about the tools to be implemented, as an educator, one needs to understand whether the educator understands what is sustainability, what is sustainable development. Is the educator able to link it to the daily life, and also is the person able to bring in that eco-responsible behavior? Because unless that system or the curriculum or whatever you're creating, it does not reach these simple things, then it really becomes meaningless. So to put it very simply, if somebody needs to understand what is sustainable development and sustainability, then it's a simple thing. Like we are all we are the living creatures, and we're living in this biosphere, and that's where the life exists. And we have the lithosphere and the atmosphere and the hydrosphere, which makes the biosphere. We have to understand that. We also have to understand that there is solar energy and there is gravity, which we feel, the solar energy we see, and these are responsible, not any order, for moving certain specific chemicals. And they are the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, through this ecosystem between the biotic and the abiotic, the living and the non-living components. And also we need to understand that when it comes to energy, this biosphere is open to the energy. The energy can come in and it can go out, but it is not open when it comes to matter. So the matter remains or in this biosphere. It's like nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is just transformed. And it eventually disperses in one direction. So then the question is, if everything disperses in one direction, how are we here? And that's when we have to understand that photosynthesis pays the bill. They are the one who actually gather, aggregate all the matter, and there is a chemical process, and then a new structure and a new life form is formed. And there are the small processes which are very geological cycles and all which is taking place. So the basic thing we have to understand as an educator when we are creating any curriculum, and therefore when we talk about sustainability, it is the capacity of this human society to continue to live in this indefinitely if we are within these natural cycles. And when we develop in this state of natural cycle, that's what sustainable development is. So this is important. And we also have to understand when we are creating the tool, we need to understand that we are humans, and as humans, we know exactly what we have done to this planet. because our interference is the root cause of disturbing this natural cycle, and therefore we are in this unsustainable situation right now. And we are facing the wrath of nature every day, practically every day. So while designing the curriculum, while implementing the tools, while what to do, what not to do, we need to focus on 4 things that we should stop doing. So your whole curriculum should be based on those 4 things. And then only if we continue to do that, then only we are going to be sustainable. Otherwise, just doing an activity just for the sake of doing it without connecting with life is going to be totally meaningless. So I'll just briefly tell you what those 4 things are. So we know that we need to stop extracting so much of material we take from our Earth's crust, and we are accumulating that even the Earth cannot cope with it. So when we are setting up these small activities, we teach children maths. Basic maths when we start about counting and all, and we do talk about money, and we do have an activity with buying and selling. So why not just switch it and change it in such a way that you actually change it with and introduce a kabadi wala, which is a person who actually deals with the waste, and do the cash transaction with them, let them pay and let them sell, because we know that a kabadiwala or a waste collector is a person who will pay you money for your trash. So then they understand that not only we reduce our waste, we refuse to take take certain things which are going to become waste, how to reuse it, how to repurpose, how to recycle. Another thing I do is I'll just show it to you, like with e-waste. I have this bottle, which is again a waste. Take out the strap, I put it into another bottle where we talk about this eco brick. The plastic goes over here. But when we have a lot of cells, battery cells, when you're using battery cells for numerous things. So what I do is I make these battery cell bricks so that if it leaches, if there is any leakage, it stays inside. And simple thing, the children just have to put in their used batteries inside it. And then when we talk about extracting, it's basically the mines we're talking about. Maybe you don't have a mine, but you can always make your seed balls, and the seed balls can last for a long time. You find out where the mines are and post your seed balls, or if you can take them to the mines, throw them and, do the broadcasting of seed balls. So simple things, if we do it, we can actually connect them. The second thing is that, what we have to stop doing is that we create a lot of chemical compounds which are here for a long time, like the plastic itself, right? And furthermore, we keep adding so much substance into what is existing already that it is accumulating. That's the carbon dioxide. So I have this book, which I have written, Polytrap. It's about the polythene, which is there in the sea. So I write my own jingle. Today being an Earth Day, I've just posted it on YouTube. You can check it out. I'll give you the link. And then I have a session with them. I sing a song with them. We play a game called I Spy with My Little Eye. That's what the game is inside this. And then, after doing this activity, the children in the end are screaming that say no to plastic as a simple way to reach out to them. Instead of just saying, don't use plastic, we just bring in that to them. And another thing we can ask them to do with pollution catcher is, like for carbon dioxide and all, they make these little beautiful spiral wheels or any form of a hanging, device they can make and string it up and put it in different places, like near the house or where the bus stand is or near a garden, and just put a little Vaseline on it. And then you can see exactly how much of pollutants get stuck over there. Then I do things like simple thing like a ruco, which is a repurposed used cooking oil. That sounds very complicated, but we don't, the main thing over here, it's the concept that we teach them and not the jargon, right? So we don't have to tell them about ruco. We just tell them that every time your mother cooks and there's a little oil left, just collect it in an empty plastic bottle. And once it is filled, you bring it to the school or you bring it to one end and we collect it. And over the period, then we can actually sell it, and how you can show a film or you take them to the center where this is used to make biodiesel and you can run your motor car with it. I have a friend who actually does that. And the third thing we need to stop doing is that we are inhibiting our nature's ability to run this natural cycle. So it's one simple act, like if you cut a tree, that disrupts all the snobs. It disrupts your carbon cycle, hydrogen cycle, nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, phosphorus, and the sulfur, because the tree is the main source through which this cycle has to take place. And we have to teach them that, the nature has given us these beautiful 3 carbon sinks, and it's all the pollution that we make, it actually absorbs it. And that's the forest, soil, and the ocean. So talk to them about how cutting a tree is going to disturb them. Teach how to make a terrarium, or tile and de-cement a tree which is choked with so it's a simple step. With the soil also, we can teach them composting is a very simple thing. So as I said, not the jargon, only the concept you can do. And there's so many activities on soil erosion. Even when it comes to ocean and rivers, like you can do the beach cleanup or a river cleanup. And trust me, when you pick up a plastic and you do it, you can actually have the 17 SDG chart in your classroom, and maybe you can pick up exactly what are the SDGs I covered by just picking up that plastic from the beach. And a simple way we can tell them, and trust me, there are about 5 SDGs we cover just by cleaning up a beach. But at the same time, that same plastic, instead of allowing it to come to the beach, if I can start a zero waste in my school and introduce zero waste, that the plastic will not leave my school premises or my institute premises, then I add 5 more SDGs to it. And one of the SDGs which adds to is that we can actually talk about SDG 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8, and then we talk about poverty. And that's where the 4th issue comes in, which is a social issue. The first 3 were the ecological issue. This is the 4th issue which comes into play, which we can stop doing, is in our society, we are creating this barrier for people to meet their basic human needs worldwide. And by just bringing in a zero waste target, I started this in Sanskriti school where I was teaching. So we had this rat picker boy who was coming to my school after he finished his school, because that was the deal. It was no charity. It was, he has to go to school in the morning, by evening he has to come and pick up all the non-biodegradable waste from my school, because biodegradable was getting composted with the help of the entire school, because the whole school was involved. All you have to do is throw your waste in the right bin. And that's a simple thing. And this boy who used to actually roam around the street for 10 hours, his life changed. And there's another YouTube which I made, a video which I made it. I'll share the link and you can have a look, because otherwise I'll take a long time. So basically, like we have a physics, chemistry, biology lab in a school should also have an environmental lab. So when I say environment lab, it doesn't have to be an enclosed lab. It can be an open lab. It can be anything, like Matt said, it can be anywhere. But these concepts of what we should not do in order to be sustainable should be introduced. No textbooks. And this becomes more meaningful. Then we work and we make the activities which work within the natural cycle, and we make sure to stop doing the 3 ecological and the 1 social issue that I just spoke about. Then only we can say that it's a sustainable education, and definitely it will mitigate the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So that's quite insightful, and those 4 pointers are for keeps. So I definitely would recommend whoever is watching this entire discussion, even if you forget or miss out on certain points, we'll have the recordings available, so you can just refer them back and do a revision, and then you have to take an action on it. It shouldn't be closed just within your books or diaries and all that. So now moving on to the next panelists. So Ketna ma'am, we have one, I'm sorry. Okay. So we have one aspect wherein we look at the curriculum part and how we can actually create a synchronization between the syllabus and the educational approach for sustainability. And then there is another aspect wherein we are focused more on bringing in about behavioral and attitudinal change in children, which isn't absolutely a cakewalk for sure. So I would like to learn from you, and in fact, all of us would like to know from you, like how that can be integrated in the curriculum and followed by a good monitoring or measuring mechanism. So how that can actually be made possible when we talk about, behavioral and attitudinal change.
Okay.
Over to you, ma'am.
So I'll take it into as three different questions or three components. Starting with when we are saying that behavioral change, we want the change to be there in the behavior. What do we understand by behavior? It's basically a habit which has been created over a period of time. So when we talk about children, actually in the lower grades, they are still in the learning phase. So they have not yet developed any particular kind of behavioral pattern because they are not aware about the concept. So when we are teaching them as a parent or as an educator, what we are trying to do is trying to bring something very new. So they will imbibe it as it is. But yes, as they start growing up and they are having different family backgrounds, different kinds of social backgrounds, so they might be having sort of a setup in which they are, whatever they are learning at the school and what is happening actually at their home is different. And so they have cultivated some kind of habit. We need to break that. Definitely, it's not easy because we are dealing with a very intellectual generation which is coming up. They are very bright and you cannot impose. Whenever you want to change, make some kind of change, whether it is an adult or it is a child. What change is going to happen is you are just going to be a facilitator. You will bring awareness to them. You will give them sufficient knowledge that they can make a difference in their choices. But the final decision has to be taken up by the child or a person whose behavior you want to alter, right? So when we are talking about behavioral change, our duty as a parent or as a teacher is that we bring that knowledge to them. We teach them right. We talk about, like right now we are talking about the greener planet. So we talk about the sustainable practices, give them the sufficient logic why we need to do this. If only we are just saying, we are imposing upon our idea that you have to do it because it is supposed to be done, they are not going to sustain that particular thing. Maybe they are not going to do that in front of you, but behind you, because they are lacking that logic, they will switch back to their old habit. So therefore, the important aspect is knowing ourselves what is the right thing. So as a teacher, if you have the right concept, we should not shy out. Like even as a parent, if you are not knowing and you are not having sufficient awareness, you should go and have consultation. You should yourself try and learn. And as it is, like one simple example again, that if I want to teach my child science or mathematics, and if I am not having the potential to do that, what I will do is I will have a tutor. So similarly, if I know that this is for the good of the child and I am not having that awareness, as a parent, I should not shy out from taking help from the teacher or from anybody who can bring that knowledge. So this is one part. The second part is we also need to understand that behavioral change is not just one step. It's not a linear process. So there are different phases of behavior change. One is that pre-contemplation phase, contemplation phase, when you are actively wanting to change that, when you are not aware about it. So for an educator, it is important to understand that what is the phase in which that child is. Maybe in one single class, in one grade itself, you will find that there are children having different levels of behavioral change. Like one is already aware, one is not aware, one is having a rigid practices which are there in their community. So it's difficult to change all of them giving one single message. You have to be very simple and specific because they're still building up the logic. They are not like adults that who already have a set mindset. You need to change them and you need to bring the knowledge to their platform. So this is how, like, it's not very simple, but understanding and breaking it into pieces and what is the problem area, identifying that problem area, you can easily find out the solution. So this is one part. Now, how we need to bring it into the curriculum. So Neeta ma'am has already talked about it, how we can bring in these activities so that they will be learning. One simple example, which is also endorsing what Matt has said, that we take them to the environment, to the outside, and make them feel that particular thing. So simple example is that if somebody wants to learn to drive a car, you can have lots of simulations. You can learn it at home. But until unless you actually sit at the driver's seat, you will not be able to know that how you have to run that. So that thing is definitely required. Learning theoretically about environment is not sufficient enough. You need to take the child to the outside environment, make them feel that. When we are talking about, we give them sufficient logic, knowledge, everything is available today. Science has been explained in the best possible way today. But still there are lots of people who are not taking action. So what is the reason behind? Because they are not able to feel that. So one simple step, like if I want to talk about waste management and how vicious that problem is and how big that problem is, until and unless I don't go and stand at a landfill site, I will not be able to understand the pain of that. So we need to bring in the curriculum in such a way that it brings these activities which make them feel about the problem areas also. Just talking about that, this is there. Now, in India, if we talk about the education system, environment science or the knowledge about environment came into practice like in college as well as schools in all the grades. After 1991, there was a PIL which was being filed by an advocate. Thereafter, the Supreme Court ruling told that you have to have environmental education as a part. But still, it was not so much impactful in the way that it is already there in the curriculum, but people are not following that. Why? Because it's only, this is the thing, the facts are being mentioned. What will be the consequences? They are not being mentioned. So until and unless we bring, like as a parent, what we will do, we will take the children out and we will make them experience nature, but that will all be the good part. We will always be protective and we will not let them go into a, like as a parent, I would not like my child to go and stand in a landfill, right? But until and unless, like maybe even if you're not actually taking them, or for example, you can relate it more when we are talking about disaster risk reduction. What is being done in those trainings? Actually, you don't want that an earthquake should happen or a tsunami or a cyclone should happen, but you want to train the people who are staying out over there, and therefore you have devised certain virtual games. So simulations, games, and all these things should be brought in if you cannot actually take your child to these places, and the local area problems should be discussed with them. We have some good systems in India, which I will like to highlight upon, as the environment education was already there. But then Atal Innovation Mission, which is a flagship initiative of Government of India, wherein they have got more than 10,000 schools which are having the tinkering labs. What the child does over there is no curriculum about over there. The child has to just go and sit in those laboratories where they have to think about the problem areas which are there in their environment, in their community, and they have to come up with the solution. And most of these problems are somewhere related with environment. They are somewhere related with the issues of water. They are related with deforestation, drought, or flooding, or all these things. And the child thinks about that, what are the problems? How can I bring in some solution? When the child is ready for that, the child is given support through the government, through the organization, through the mentors, and they come up with different solutions for which they are being given a platform. They have an annual sort of projects which are being displayed, and then they are taken forward. So this is one of the initiative, how you can bring in activity without imposing any kind of assessment fear in them, that I have to appear for my examinations, and if I don't get the marks like that, then what is going to happen? So that kind of pressure is removed. Another initiative which has happened in our state itself, which is Maji Vasundhara project, in which the state environment and climate change department, together with UNICEF and CEE, that is one another organization, they did the assessment of all the curriculums which are available presently. What are the gap areas and how it can be brought to be more activity oriented? This is what they have come up with, a new syllabus and 2 booklets. Based on this, they are training the teachers and it is in the implementation phase. If it becomes successful, it will be replicated all across the country. So these are few good initiatives, how the curriculum, it can be a part of curriculum. Now, the third part of it, that how we can do the monitoring and evaluation. So bringing the pressure of having a summative assessment, always it is not required when specifically we are dealing with children in the lower grades. What we can do is we can have formative assessment, we can have quizzes, we can have presentations by the children, and we can have the group project activities through which you can evaluate whether the change is happening or not. And at the level of school, what can be done is that they can check it out. Like if we are teaching children about waste management, so you can monitor what is the quantity of the waste which was being generated earlier. You have developed a matrix of your own and you decide that now the quantity of waste has been reduced. If we talk about energy, similarly, we talk about water. So we can do the evaluation and we can find it out what is the impact. So that's the answer to all your 3 questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for actually explaining it in 3 different categories. That's really a simplified version of the take that you have actually undertaken. So my next question is to Simona, ma'am. So how do you think that, like how we can actually inculcate such ideas and the level of understanding that can ultimately make children planet sensible, and which is definitely not limited to schools and school learning or the learning process at school altogether, and it extends to training at home as well. So if you could just tell us 2 or 3 ways how parents can be involved in this entire learning process, and the entire the system of being more planet sensible gets more amplified that way when parents also get into the space. So if you can share with us 2 or 3
thank
such
you.
points. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, very interesting, and some of the things I'm going to say are related to what Matt, Nita, and Ketan were saying. Now, the first thing is to make parents concerned about the environment, because I'm the youngest here, as you can see, and I know that my age, when I was young, for example, there was no concern at all. I was lucky living in a family where there was some sensibility, but I remember very well in school, the teacher saying, don't throw garbage, don't throw plastic outside, because outside the window, when people was traveling by the car or whatever, everybody was throwing whatever they had in the road. Nowadays, it's very different. But I still remember how much important was the teacher telling the importance of not doing it. And I remember my parents reinforcing it. For me, it was normal because it was not allowed in the family. But for most of my friends or schoolmates, it was something totally new. So the number one is to make parents concerned, because sometimes the parents are not concerned. I mean, they listen what is said, but from my experience, then we need to understand where these parents are coming from, because again, there are different backgrounds, different cultures, and different levels. And as we said, children learn from what they see and what they do. So one of the things we've been implementing, for example, has been to create some workshop for the parents, to start with them to understand, and then it depends on the context. Sometimes we did with parents, the first workshop, and then parents and children together. Because later on we are developing some, let's say, as a game. So each child was going home, implementing something with the parents. And it was, each child was very much willing, because the risk in some contexts is that you tell something to the children, and it's true that sometimes they can go back home and then they convince the parents about the importance of it. But again, it depends. And so this is something that educators need to evaluate, who are the parents. Because I personally face also some challenges where the children are going back home with some ideas, but the parents are rejecting because they're saying that is a nonsense, it's not our issue, everybody's doing this, so the parents are devaluating what the teacher is saying. And we don't need that. We need the parents to cope with us as educators. So, for example, I wish I can share for example, we have different ways. If we are in Western countries, for example, parents can become role model. In the workshop, we can start asking them, why is so important to care for the planet? Why? And we lead them to give us answers. And this one works. And then, there is the issue of health, there is the issue of all the resources that we're stealing from our children. And when a parent becomes conscious that his behavior is stealing something to the children, something will change. And then the idea was to do some small things, as Nita was saying. For example, water consumption. Don't keep the tap open and the water running while you brush your teeth or when you wash your hands. Take a glass, put a bit of water, and then when you have to brush your teeth, you sip from that glass only, not the tap open throughout. And when you wash your water, just a bit of water, then you soap, and then you open again the water. Another issue is, and as some of you were saying also, to switch off the light, because sometimes light is not useful, or maybe you don't need to have lights all over the room. Maybe you just need a bulb where you are writing. So this is also another place. And then also not to waste food. And there is a sensibility that you can raise also on the issue of, for example, utilize public transport. Nowadays, I see that in many countries, parents, they go one car, one parent, one child. All this car going. And there is a very nice initiative that is the walking bus stop, meaning that all the children get in a place and there are some parents, they rotate and they take the children to school walking or by public transport. That is also a way to make the children aware of the importance. You don't go with one person, one car, because obviously the waste is a lot. Also, the possibility of walking, because sometimes if it's a short distance, by walking, you have no traffic jam, you are sure what time you will arrive, and you raise this consciousness of doing something for the planet. But, and then there is also the possibility of doing some activities outdoor, meaning if you can recycle and reuse. We have been doing some very nice brooms, for example, out of plastic bottles, and they work very well. And the children were very proud to have these brooms that are good for external use, obviously, not inside the house, but for the garden or whatever. And anyway, it was a way to recycle what they were doing. The parents to be role model utilizing, for example, cloth, grocery bag, something so simple, and is a way. Now, to involve the parents, as I said, is important to create some workshops. And I see that if you do it, it works very well. And I want to tell you that it happens also in Africa, where I am throughout the year. Let me see if I can share the photo. Because there we have a very big problem. Can you see my screen?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Why not? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. The area where we are working, people was cutting trees because it was the only way to produce charcoal. It was the only way to get some money. As you can see, we have been experiencing for some years no rain at all. People is suffering. Also this year, people were suffering for hunger. And then when we are talking about environment and whatever, parents were too busy with their own businesses to listen to what we are saying. Then we promoted some meetings and we involved the children, trying to tell them the importance of planting trees and not cutting trees. And we teach them a new way to create charcoal out of branches and whatever. And it was very difficult to involve the parents. Then when we did the workshop with them, we said, are you happy to have no rain? You're facing hunger. What do you think? Why is it coming? And then they became much more concerned about it. And we started planting trees. And we've been planting thousands of trees. And every year after the workshop, the whole community was participating. And what has been very good is that in few years, in that area started raining again, only where the trees were planted. So, you know, for these people, it's been very, very, very important because they've seen the difference. And they were somehow shocked to say, but it's raining only here. Here around is not raining. Yes, because we have planted 10,000 trees in this small area. And obviously there is a small change, not heavy rain, but better than before. So involving the parents, giving them something that is very true. I mean, I see what climate change means in these countries. I've been working in Kenya, in some areas of Uganda. There is nothing. The photo you see now, here is the only tree. This is many years ago. I was still a bit younger, and there were the only 2 trees in 5 kilometers. 2 trees only, and it's the only place with a bit of shade. And that one was the office of the community, because when they wanted to meet, the only place to have a bit of shade was that place. And all the rest was exactly as I showed you before. After some years, with some creating some small tips with the children, one after the other, and being consistent, some plants are grown. And here is something as garbage, to collect garbage, done out of plastic containers with different colors so that the children could put compost in one, and then maybe plastic in the other one, and paper, whatever, in the other one. And then there were bigger places where they can be thrown. And this one has been done out of plastic in an area where there is really nothing. There is no water, there is no electricity, there is nothing. It's in the middle of savannah. And having this for you is maybe it's nothing, but looking these plants is something that looks like magic in some places. So children, parents should be involved to become role model for the children when they understand the importance of it. And for example, another time we did with other parents talking about health. And parents were not very involved. It was not in Africa, that one. And parents were not very much willing to come and to be involved and to participate. And then we start talking about, how concerned are you about the health of your child? Do you want a child to be healthy? And obviously they were said, yes. Okay, now environment is a good environment is what produces good food. Because nowadays we know that when we eat fish and the oceans or the sea is full of microplastic, we eat plastic. And this plastic is producing a lot of diseases. And that was something not said, but again, through a workshop, making a lot of questions to the parents. And again, what about the chemicals that are used also to grow greens and whatever? So why don't we prepare our own compost? That is a much better way to grow greens and whatever. And the one that has been maybe the most successful has been how to prepare detergent out of natural products, as vinegar and sodium and salt. And I always use it. And nowadays we did something also out of ash, boiling ash or taking ash with a proportion of water for 2 months. You get the water that remains is perfect to clean floors, whatever, and then is also disinfectant. And with what remain of the ash is much better of all the detergent we have ever tried to clean the oven and to clean the toilet. And you know, now when you tell parents, you know, you save money, first of all, but most of all, it's hygienic, because we've been making a lot of tests. So is hygienic, is perfect. It's very difficult to convince at the beginning. We have started distributing this one. We prepared a lot, and then we involved the children in doing it, and then they were taking home. And then they had to do, they asked the mom to clean, or the maid to clean and to see the result and which one was better. And the children were so proud to see that the result was better than the chemicals. And they were coming back happy, and the parents were shocked. They never thought about it. It's so simple. And instead of all these things, yes, vinegar and sodium, we have so many things that we can do. But what is important is to involve the parents to become role model to the children, motivate them to be role model. And to do that, it's important that each school or each educator try to understand what is the background of these parents, because you can't talk the same language to all of them. It depends what is their cultural background. It depends what is their, also their status. Because, for example, for many people in some countries, having plastic is a status, it's a way, finally I have plastic. So while in some countries we try to reduce plastic usage, but in some other countries, when they get plastic water in the plastic bottle, they feel very rich. So how can you tell them to reduce it? Because for them is a status symbol. So this one is to the educators to understand who you have, who these parents are, and then to talk to them according with what is their belief and how to motivate them to change. But I can assure that when this one happens, the results are beautiful. We have really all children coming, and each one of them, mom is using this Ash to Clean and it's very good. And the maid said, and the other one says, we have reduced a lot the consumption, for example, of water. As Ketna was saying, you can monitor the usage. How much garbage are you taking out every day or every week? And how can you reduce the utilization of plastic? Maybe you use refillable pot or whatever, so that you don't need to go and every time purchase something in the plastic. And it's very nice to see the response of the children, but also the concern of the parents growing every day. That is the small, because there is a lot to talk, but the time is limited.
But what you have pointed out is apt and correct, because the entire pedagogy should also get parents involved, because what children learn inside the school should also be replicated in some or the other version at home, and they also feel involved and part of all the processes that also take place at home. For example, to start with food waste. So
Yes.
if they know how to grow their own food, and if they have learned it at school, and while wasting food at home, they'll be very conscious. And that's where parents also come into the space, educating them about why that is really critical and important. So at the Climate Project Foundation, we have this program called as Green Campus Program, wherein we transform campuses. So we transform conventional campuses into green campuses based on 5 to 6 major parameters like air, water, waste, biodiversity, and wellness, and energy. So what happens is, based on these parameters, the schools take various initiatives, like let's say for solar, for energy, they install solar panels. For air quality, they create green spaces wherein green indoor spaces with indoor air purifying plants, wherein they can actually minimize the pollution at indoor level. So in this, whatever initiatives they take place in the entire process, children also get involved. So on a daily basis at various schools, children are actually given this task to monitor air quality. So whenever it just spikes, they're like really worried what's happening. Why is it, at such huge numbers? So, and their curious minds don't, let them stay, silent, and they just, rush to their teachers, and who are also groomed under this program. So to ask them, children go to their teachers to ask them, as in what will happen if pollution levels, or PM 2.5, PM 10, or VOCs are at this level. So what harm that can actually, such pollutants can bring to us. So how this is going to affect us, and they get their answers. So gradually they get involved in the process, like you were talking about public transport. So there is a school in Chennai which is undergoing this program. So for them, there are, I think, 2 days in a week or fortnightly. Most all the children, they commute with their bicycles. So they ride all the way from their home to school, just to reduce the carbon footprint. So there are various such measures wherein parents also get involved, because parents will ultimately have to allow their children to commute either through buses or school transport system, or through their own conveyance. So and children have a lot of dependencies. So when it comes to in their growing phase, until they actually reach that adult phase, so that's very critical. And I think we have, all of us have had a like good brainstorming session. So now is the time for a very quick rapid fire round, wherein this is a common question, but it has to be really, really rapid. So I'll just maintain the pace of my voice modulation accordingly. So tell us one activity that you feel a child should be doing on a weekly basis or fortnightly. So let's start with Sir Matt. If you can just quickly tell us, it's a rapid fire, so you have to. Yeah.
Stroking a plant or tree.
Okay. What about you, ma'am? Nita, ma'am.
I feel if a child learns to segregate waste at home, first learn to respect waste, segregate waste at home. If you can do it, it starts from home. You can then take it elsewhere too.
Okay, Ketna, ma'am, your turn.
I would like that child should do nature journaling. They should go out and they should write down all the experiences about animals, plants, or anything, whatever observations of their feelings. So they will develop the skill as a writer also, and they will be able to balance their emotions as well. So this is the co-benefit.
Okay, and Simona, ma'am.
Okay, to me is going to school walking, or by walking bus, or by bus, or whatever. And like Ketna, to write something about the experience, who you meet, how was the experience, all the positive aspect of going walking and avoiding the car.
So another quick question, since today is Earth Day, and we know that a lot goes into the creation of, this army that we have been talking about for our, greener future, greener planet. So invest in our planet is the theme of this Earth Day. So any message to the educators and parents on this day very quickly? Again, start with Sir. Yeah.
Do the research. There's so much research out there, and educators tend to be based in facts. So if we find out and we highlight and advocate for the people that are doing the research on this, that is the only way to convince educators and higher up governments. They need to see data. They need to see it written down in scientific formula to say this is actually working. Otherwise, they won't take any notice.
Okay, Simona, ma'am.
Be role model. Do what you say and say what you're going to do. So to be very honest with yourself first, and try to do, what you think, to coordinate what you think, you say, and you do. So be role model, each one of us.
Okay, Ketna, ma'am.
I would say the same thing, that one needs to be a role model, because children are looking up to us as a teacher, as a parent, and there will be a lot of confusion if we are preaching something else, we are telling them to do something else, and we ourselves are not able to follow that. They will be confused and they will not be able to create a sort of a behavior or a habit. So we need to walk the talk.
And Nita, ma'am, your turn.
Yeah, like she said, practice what you preach, and definitely follow the laws of nature, because in nature, waste nothing. It's one organism's waste is another's feast. Somebody's poison is somebody's potion. So that's what we need to focus on, get back to our roots, and share best practices, but first practice it yourself. And I always feel that whatever you impart, whatever you're doing, continuously, for your children, continuously keep giving the right message, the right action in homeopathic dosage, because, in the end, after a certain time, it will definitely show a positive result. And good luck.
That's true, ma'am. So before we close the session, I think one of the attendees, Rajiv Kumar, he wanted to share something. So if he is here, I would request Rajiv to share what he wanted to. Uh, Rajiv Kumar, are you here? Still? Okay, I
I think
think
it's
he's
left,
not
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was something with his connection. He was going on and off.
Yeah.
So yes. So I think sustainability education is something that just doesn't demand your um, monetary involvement. It's more about your intent. It's more about how much time are you planning to invest in it, and your effort, your dedication. Basically everything boils around the intent. So once you have that right intent in place, then you can definitely reach your objective and the goals that you are aspiring for. I would like to thank ECDF, the Early Childhood Development Forum, which has successfully organized this webinar and such an insightful panel discussion in association with the Child Education and Development Research Center and the Climate Project Foundation, India and South Asia branch. So on that note, I wish everyone a happy Earth Day. And definitely I would want everybody to bear that torch throughout and propagate what we are actually capable of doing and how we envision the earth to be. And let's invest ourselves in our planet, because we just have one planet, one earth, and many people to look after. And we do have that responsibility to motivate and encourage other people to actually come forward and look after this earth, this planet. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to
Thank
thank
you.
all the esteemed panelists for their time and
Thank you very much.
their knowledge and experiences. Thank you so
Thank-
much once again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Celebrate Earth Day every day.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Nita.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take
Bye.
care and stay safe.
Okay.
Mhm.
Bye.